All right. Well, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Catherine Coble. I'm a partner here at Shoff. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Shoff Chat is just an informal opportunity that we like to take occasionally to have some interesting people that we know join us for a conversation about a topic that we're interested in and that we think many of you will be interested in too. So today we're going to talk about the power of audio. And this is always a really interesting one to me because there are so many things that you may not necessarily be thinking about when it comes to the power of audio in your marketing communications. And so today we are joined by several of our friends over at Earshot Audio Post. We've been working with Earshot for many, many years here at Voiceover, and we love the work that they do. So we'd like to have them join us for the conversation today. So let me give you just a little bit of background on who is joining us. First of all, Earshot has been one of the premier sound production studios in the Midwest and has produced hundreds of projects for various local, national, and global companies. Just a few of those include HBO, NBC Sports, Microsoft, 20th Century Fox, Discovery Channel, you name it, they have done it. They've even won a couple of Emmys for their work, so congratulations, gentlemen. We at Warshoff, as I mentioned, have worked with Earshot for many, many years, and we really enjoy some of the memorable projects that we've done together. One of our team members who has worked closely with Earshot is Colin Dullahan, and he's also with us today. He's one of our senior writers, and he will be adding to the conversation as well. So from Earshot, we have Bryce Bowman, Rick Such, and Ben Erickson, and I think we can go ahead and just get started with the conversation, gentlemen. So thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So just to get started, I want to let everyone know that if you have a question along the way, we do want this to be interactive. And so if you have something that you'd like to contribute to the conversation, please feel free to drop a note in the chat. You can either ask your question through the chat and I can share that with the guys, or if you'd like to contribute to the conversation directly, I'm happy to call on you and you can unmute your microphone at that point and then ask your question or share your observation. So we will be very prompt at finishing our time together at shortly before 10 a.m. today. So please don't wait to hold those questions to the end. Let's do that all along the way. And so just to get started, I want to get started with Bryce and Rick. The two of you started Earshot back in the early 2000s. Tell us a little bit about your vision and what you saw as a need in the marketplace back then, and has that changed over the years?
Bryce, do you want to go, or do you want me to take that?
Go ahead.
Well, back when we started Earshot, we were coming from another studio here in Indianapolis. One of the reasons that we decided to start Earshot was that this other studio was kind of changing their focus from being strictly an audio production company, and they wanted to branch out and do more in the way of like video production and other forms of. They wanted to offer more services, and we just basically wanted to remain audio centric. So I think our goal was just to carry on what we had initially, signed up for. We were audio guys, and we didn't want to dive into the video side of things. And I think that was important to us to maintain sort of an island sort of theory in terms of being audio production guys, as opposed to guys that could be a jack of all trades. And audio is we feel like audio is obviously it's a specialty. It's something that requires a certain set of skill and discipline, and we wanted to carry that on.
Yeah, I agree on all counts there. Also, I would say that from a business perspective, there was business and technology at that time. Technology was sort of telling anyone who was in this field that if you can do one thing like audio, you can do it all on your desktop. And so the trend was that the owners of the studio wanted us to be audio engineers, producers, and then also on our desktop we could have video editing, and we could, you know, have it all. And at that time, we were really pushing to go into post-production, finishing for picture. And from a business perspective, I think both Rick and I felt that we would find ourselves, if we were doing video editing, we'd find ourselves competing against and bidding against the very production companies that we wanted to do audio finishing for. And so that sort of solidified our feeling of, let's concentrate on what we do well and not try to be completely vertically integrated and do it all. And so we really decided to build just a state-of-the-art studio and concentrate on what we know how to do. And that's always been kind of the implicit mission statement, business-wise.
So Bryce, just to kind of build off of that then, here we are almost 20 years later, and obviously that's been a successful route for you all to take. Tell us a little bit about the power of audio. Why do you think that it is so critical to what marketing communications people may be trying to accomplish, that it really deserves to be looked at, you know, very specifically?
Well, again, I think the trends in media communications have been very visually oriented over the past 10 to 20 years. Everything has been trending towards, you know, everyone has the capability to produce any kind of visual media that they want on their phone, even all the way down to their phone. You know, Apple sells us on the idea that you can produce a major motion picture on your phone. The world is totally visually oriented. And I think that there have been a lot of studies done that people will put up with degradation in picture quality and still maintain the comprehension of the story all the way down to a ridiculously low level, you know, all the way down to like 5 to 10% of the picture quality, and people will still retain the quality of the story. It's not the same way with audio. You can have a 5 to 10% degradation in the quality of the audio, and you lose people's attention and you lose the comprehension of the storytelling that's going on in this case, in, you know, marketing and branding. So that's not a very known notion in the world of media production, but we have always kind of stuck to that and felt like we really need to concentrate on this as a specialty and bring a higher quality of the audio to people. And over the course of these years, we've just continued to do that. And it seems to be successful, even in the face of the totally visually oriented world. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, it does. That's a really great insight, and something that a lot of people probably aren't necessarily thinking about primarily because of the visual orientation of so much of what we do. So I want to pull Ben into the conversation here a little bit and key off of something that you actually said, Bryce, with, you know, iPhone tells us we can put together a major motion picture just with our phone. So Ben, tell us a little bit about this. With the proliferation of all of these home studios and inexpensive gear and, you know, iPhones and things like that, we know that more and more people are doing more of that DIY type of video and audio project. But when is it better to actually turn to an expert specifically, when you're maybe what you're trying to accomplish, or you know, how you think about the project that you're putting together from an audio perspective?
Well, I'm of course biased, but I almost would say the statement, like, the moment your project needs to be outward facing to either the masses or even just a small amount, even if it's your internal, like your own social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, because now all of those platforms have audio specifications, and they do have algorithms that can kind of sort of get you in line with, the next video that would play afterwards. But there's also, I don't know, with that, there's no guarantees. Do you want to have a computer crunching the numbers for you, or do you want a human ear listening to that? So, Bryce, Rick, and I, we've done this for years and read all the papers, went through the Calm Act of 2013 and all that, the setting the standards for broadcast levels. And now that we've got so many different streaming services that all have their own specifications, it's kind of, we've been in the weeds and specialized in that sort of stuff. So, or an audio post-production house has done that. So that kind of is one instance where it's just going to be very efficient too. And to use like an analogy with anything DIY, you think about, I guess I'll use my example of, I had a slab leak in my house and I have to replace a small patch of tile, like 5 feet by 5 feet. And I started going through YouTube videos and saw that and was like, oh, this is taking some time to learn how to do this because I've never done it before. And then it's like, oh, and I have to buy all this equipment to do something that I'm hopefully going to only do once. So I don't know, you can kind of pragmatically crunch the numbers and say, like, because your time is very valuable. So how much time do you want to invest and person hours you want to invest into something that perhaps a small team that has been doing this for decades could just, do it a lot quicker and more efficiently too. And then, and going to use yet another home sort of analogy, because I think Rick and Bryce mentioned how, specialized we are. Think of a drywall hanger. You can hang your own drywall, but that one, at least to me, is just such a specialized skill set that it's like, oh, I can tell when somebody did that by themselves. So I kind of feel like, again, I'm biased, but I feel like we're kind of in that similar area where we're just so hyper specialized that it's like you can kind of tell if a post-production facility, an audio post-production facility specifically, mixed a project and someone who did it, kind of a jack of all trades kind of did it.
Yeah, I think the drywall example is spot on. That's a conversation I've had several times with my husband before when he's fixed things and said, you know what, we're hiring a professional for this. I could do it, but we'll all be a lot happier if we hire the professional. It'll be done better and faster. Okay, so gentlemen, what kind of trends in media production are you seeing these days? Tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on now and maybe how that mix of things has changed over the years and maybe what you even see coming in the future.
Go ahead, Rick.
I think it's a mix of things. I mean, we've always been sort of fortunate that our client base is pretty diverse. So we tend to work on anything from, we're still working on a decent amount of radio. We're, obviously doing a lot of audio posts for television. Bryce recently, we were contracted by NBC. We've had a relationship with NBC for a while, and Bryce last summer and this winter did audio mixing for the Summer and Winter Olympic Games for NBC. They were features that were shown, probably, Bryce, 150 features or something you did collectively. I've worked on some episodic stuff for Outside TV recently, quite a few episodes for shows that are streamed on the Outside TV network. A lot of hospitals. There's a lot of hospitals that seem to advertise these days. A lot of the work is headed towards web, as Ben mentioned. We have to be sort of hypersensitive to how that stuff is mixed because of the specifications for each one of these platforms. So it's really still diverse, wide range of things that we tend to work on, that even all the way down to IVR, which is, phone prompts for telephone systems. And we do ADR as well. A lot of times when there are actors in town who might be here for specific reasons that, for conventions or conferences, or maybe they live here, we do ADR for television shows and movies. ADR is dialogue replacement, so they come in and basically react the lines so that we can get a cleaner version of the line that they can slip into the movie. Because a lot of times on the set, there's, when they're shooting something on set, there's noise, there's some extraneous noise from an airplane flying over, or whatever it might be, and they just need a cleaner version, or maybe it wasn't mic'd properly. So probably about 80% of the movies and television shows you see, the ones that are heavily produced have, are primarily ADR. So did that answer your question? It's a real round robin sort of, set of types of media that we work on.
Rick, are you also allowed to talk about famous local authors who might be associated with Indianapolis, who record their books for people to listen to in narration at earshot?
Yeah, we've yeah, that's true. There's a gentleman named John Green. He's been in to record one of his books recently. His wife also is an author, and she's recorded books here as well. Yeah, and we've actually been doing a lot of book recording too lately. We've got a relationship with a pretty major publisher out of New York that tends to use some talent here to do books. So that's been something that's really cropped up. And podcasts as well. I didn't want to leave podcasts out, because podcasts are an interesting format, because back in 2006, when podcasts became a thing, and then a few years later they weren't a thing, and now they're a huge thing again. It seemed like, going back to the do-it-yourself question you had earlier, podcasts were something that a lot of people just did on their own. They just figured, I've got a USB mic, I can slap it in my computer, I can speak, and then I'm out there. But as you guys know, are fully aware, because we've done some work with you with some podcasts, the production value has become key, because the podcast market is flooded with all kinds of podcasts. And I think if the audio quality is poor, it's like Bryce had mentioned earlier, if the audio quality is poor on something like that, and it's trying to retain your attention, people just tune out instantly. I know I have. When I listen to a podcast and the audio sounds, it's just, you can tell it's not a well-produced piece. It's just hard to listen to. So the production values on podcasts have really come to the forefront. We've been doing a lot more podcasts as well here.
And Colin, in addition to that, just another author, local author, Ashley C. Ford. We did her book here. Oh. She's a huge media influencer and author, and wrote a phenomenal book that we recorded here. I think that was also for a big publisher out of New York, Random House. And so I guess I was going to, in addition to that, on this topic, I was going to just throw in, I mean, Rick had mentioned that we work on all these different types of media. And in terms of, media trends, technologically, most of the audio and video editing platforms have become relatively stable from the mid to late 80s up until the turn of the century. We were constantly growing with things that were happening in our platform is Pro Tools, which is made by Avid, which also makes video production gear, video editing gear. So the platform itself is relatively stable. It's not like we're getting all kinds of new audio things. I mean, every once in a while there's a new plugin of some sort, and a lot of times those are music based. But for the most part, we have a platform with ridiculously pristine audio, highly manipulatable, zillions of plugins. If anything, our choices, like it is in the world in a lot of cases, too many choices. How many EQs can we put in? How many compressors? We've got all the tools we need And now this has really allowed us to be able to set up Pro Tools for a podcast, and then reset and do an ADR session, and then reset and do book recording. And each one of those requires sort of a different template within Pro Tools. And then when, like with NBC, that stuff is all mixed in 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround with stereo down mixes. And so it's a crazy platform template that is that NBC created for the Olympics and all of the other. We've worked on the Olympics, the Super Bowl, all of the big Triple Crown horse races, the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, Belmont Stakes, Thursday Night Football. All of those things require a different layout or template within Pro Tools, but all of those are just different forms of a relatively stable platform. But what I think really is changing is, in terms of media trends, especially on the heels of COVID, we were already set up for remote production with phone patch, like you could call in on a phone and listen. Then all of a sudden Zoom came in, and all of a sudden in the, in the agency world, in the creative firm world, bricks and mortar became less important. Everybody is at home, or we even work with, I worked with an agency a couple of weeks ago where there's an Indianapolis-based agency, but the writer is now based in Dallas. The art director was in Berlin. The voice talent we connected with via Source Connect was in Los Angeles. And then there were people from 3 or 4 places in the United States calling in on Zoom to listen into the voiceover recording and then listen to music mixes. And so we find ourselves more and more working remotely with people all over the world. But it's still very important for us to have the bricks and mortar of literally like an acoustically as near perfect space for recording, and an acoustically flat, near perfect space for mixing. Those things are still very important to the high level work that we do in audio. So we are kind of strangely the last bastion of bricks and mortar that is still working for us. But anyway, a lot of information, but I just thought I would add that to that media trend conversation.
You don't miss working on tape anymore, Greg?
I did my time with tape. I think I burned through 10,000 razor blades when I was doing that. So I'm really good with a razor blade. That's kind of an archaic talent.
Well, just to take off of that, I'd love to hear a little bit more from a mobile perspective. What are the challenges, or if someone knows that they have a project that really will require, maybe there's people in multiple locations, or it needs to be kind of an on the scene recording outside of the pristine conditions that you could offer, what would be some of the things that people should be thinking about as they prepare for something like that?
Well, I mean, from one, it's just we're often communicating on, I mean, this is essentially consumer level technology. So where, since you're not in the pristine environment, you're probably not going to still get, Zoom's pretty good, Skype's pretty good, but they have, whatever it takes for them to keep things, in sync and moving and stuff. Quality may be compromised at points. I know I've recently had a little bit, speaking of ADR, a little bit of a struggle because the directors were all scattered all about and they wanted to monitor via Zoom. And just some days you get picture lag. And ADR, it's very critical that you make sure that the actors' lines in studio that they're delivering sync right up. So it's it takes a little bit of a leap of faith on and we can of course always remedy it by like, okay, I'm going to marry this to your picture or send you, a wave file that you can then pull in and put on some decent headphones and get a better picture. But we're operating at a professional level of audio, and it's getting kind of like pushed through a tiny tube of, you know, consumer quality stuff. So that can make things a little bit tricky.
Were you asking more about the what say others could do in terms of capturing audio on location? Was that part of your question?
Just really
in terms of
more, just really what people should be thinking about as they prepare for some sort of a, you know, a remote type of a shoot, or some sort of a project where they really want to capture quality audio. There might be some things they could do, but just being aware of things, because that may push them to either, you know, hire someone like you, or use a different kind of equipment, or maybe change the location to make sure that they're eliminating as many barriers as they can.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm that's where I thought you were headed. You know, one of the things that we've had to adjust to, and sometimes a big part of our job in the post-production aspect is cleaning up that audio that's recorded on set, that has a lot of the audio that we've had to clean up lately has been Zoom audio, and there's not a lot you can do with it, because so many things in the past 2 years have been recorded just like this over Zoom, and it's being used in actual final production. And you know, sometimes somebody's sitting in a room that sounds like a cave, you know, and we have to reduce the, you know, the echo in the room, the reverb in the room, and or you know, we've had to just balance it out and do, you know, we've had to do a lot of we've have like a various tools that we can use to try to remedy, you know, some of that poor audio that's cut on location. But I guess if you are cutting on location and it's not something you're comfortable with, and it's not something you do all the time, because recording location audio is a whole different discipline. It's tricky. You know, you just really have to use your ears and just listen to the space, and just make sure that you are cutting in a place where there's not a lot of extraneous noise, and you know, there's not construction outside the window, or there's not cars passing by, or you know, just make sure that you're in an environment that's suitable for capturing, you know, I think that's the most important thing to tell anyone, is just really pay attention to the environment.
Yeah, and I would add that when remote or location audio is captured, it's extremely important to have somebody listening on headphones, isolated. In a classical film shoot or video shoot, the location sound engineer has the ability to stop the shot. He can say, stop, there's an airplane flying over. Stop, I'm hearing something clicking in the next room. Stop, some air conditioning just turned off halfway through the shot. They also will capture room tone, so that we have something flat from the, you know, just a flat recording of the room after everyone's done, so that we can edit that in. But a lot of shoots today are being done where somebody just plugs in a lavalier into the left channel of the digital SLR, and they plug in maybe a boom mic into the right channel. Nobody's listening to it. One of the classic things is that the camera is set for mic level, and they're bringing their two microphones through a mixer, which outputs line level, which is hotter than mic level, and it goes into the camera. So we get a lot of distorted, overdriven sound. Nobody was listening to what was being recorded. And it's, you know, and we have a favorite saying around here: where there's confusion, there's money to be made. And it's true. We do, even in this age of do it yourself, and anyone can, you know, log on to you know, like a place like Sweetwater and buy a microphone and buy a digital recorder. It doesn't matter. You have to have somebody there with the ears, and somebody who's paying attention on the set. It just, but that brings us a lot of work in terms of cleanup. But we also sort of try to put the caveat out there that we can't always clean up something that is, the signal to noise ratio is so ridiculous that there's way more air conditioning sound or construction sound than there is the voiceover or whatever. And it's like, we'll do the best we can to clean it up, but it's not always possible. So capturing that highest quality sound and having somebody listen to it on location is extremely important.
Those are excellent points, Bryce. Really appreciate that insight. I think that's something that a lot of times clients or people who are wanting the end product tend to think that just about anything can be done, but it really is kind of back to that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have a good quality recording to start with, it's going to be pretty difficult to make it something of a higher level of quality in the end product. Let's talk a little bit about talent. And after that, I want to give you guys the opportunity to share some of the samples that you have as well. We do have some interesting work that Earshot has done that we will share, which of course we're on Zoom, so we'll see how the quality is. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about talent. And Colin, you may want to chime in here as well. But just to kind of start, in addition to doing the mixing and the technical side of things, you all are involved in finding and using voice talent. Tell us a little bit about how talent plays into the success of a project.
Well, talent is obviously, they're the ones delivering your message. So it's extremely important to have a talent that can do that meets the requirements, whether it be, I mean, it really is dependent upon what it is you're doing and trying to convey, whether it's a male voice that you need or a female voice, or if it's a certain, ethnicity that you want to portray in age. And we do handle talent. We've got a roster of talent here at the studio that we work with, and all the people that we do work with, we've worked with over the years. We know them well. They're vetted. We work with both local talent that are here in Indianapolis that come to the studio, and we have also a small sort of pool of talent that are outside of the market that we can connect to via Source Connect that we know, again, we've vetted. We know they've got a great setup in their home studios. So, I mean, yeah, talent is to me is the most important part of what your project's going to sound like, just before the mix itself. Obviously another element, the key elements would be whatever music you're going to lay in and sound effects, et cetera. But obviously, talent is super important.
Yeah, Colin, I'd love to hear you as a creative and a writer who has a vision for what the end product should look like. I'd love to hear a little bit from you about how you go about picking the right talent, what you tell clients they should be considering as they are selecting talent.
Yeah, Rick's right. Talent is huge. I always think of it as casting is 90% of how the ending voiceover is going to sound. There are some special, and so we cast very carefully, and we do use the roster of talent that Earshot provides because they have access to people who are local and people who aren't. I have to discipline myself to not use the same people over and over, because over time you just find certain individuals who are extremely talented, and some people can even throw off the balance. It's not 90% casting, it becomes like 80% casting and 20% performance, because they will bring something to the performance in their delivery that you maybe didn't even envision, but it's better than what you envisioned. But the overarching truth that I have noticed over time is that the best voice actors are actors. You get, and I think Bryce and Rick and Ben get this a lot too, that someone will come up to them who just happens to have like a resonant baritone and say, I think that I should be a voiceover actor. And sometimes those people are great, but as a writer, I would much rather take somebody who has a voice that maybe you wouldn't notice if you served them in a drive-through, but that actually has the acting experience and talent and training behind it. I'll take a great actor over a great voice any day.
I would just also throw in there that a lot you were talking about, Colin, the idea that, somebody who just, I heard a guy at McDonald's who has a great voice, and so we're bringing him in, and there's an entire talent to being a voiceover person, that the ability to put a script in front of them, and then they're not going to just read it and you say, oh, that was great, thanks for coming in, I'm glad we found you at McDonald's. Sometimes there's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 takes, and you're constantly, the producer, the engineer, sometimes art directors, other people from the agency or the creative firm are putting in their 2 cents. So that person has to be able to look at a script and say, okay, this word, and this word, we want those to end down instead of upspeak. This word we want emphasized a little bit more. This word we sort of want put in quotes so that you're going to stop and sort of say the word. And so you're making marks all over the script. And then we say, oh, it's a 30-second script and you're coming in at 36. So could you take all of those things that we just told you over the last 20 takes and now put it in 29? But we don't want it to sound faster. So those are all, that's just a little microcosm of what goes on in a session with a talent. And I agree with you, Colin. It's sort of like actors are people who are used to working with interpreting lines, memorizing lines, inflecting lines. They've been on stage with a director saying, end that line down and block yourself over here. And so it's a very similar set of tools that actors use. I'm not saying radio personalities or whatever, it's a different thing, but if you're talking about characters especially, or achieving a certain tonality of the voice, actors will really have the ability to be very directable and to consistently adjust and change over the course of multiple takes to get what you, the writer, Colin, and producer are after.
I would also add that they bring such an overlooked element of humanity to the project, particularly animated stuff. But if you're going to shoot something that has a lot of B-roll, that like it's footage that doesn't have too many people in it, the voice that you choose and the delivery that they accomplish in that booth is what's going to emotionally connect with the audience when they see what you've finally made. And so you can't spend too much mental effort. It's impossible to spend too much mental effort choosing them, and of course aligning with the client and sharing and saying, now this person doesn't, if you listen to their demo reel, maybe they don't sound exactly like what we had in mind for this project, but can you imagine it? And often clients can, and often we end with something that's, like I was saying earlier, not what you had in mind, it's better. And a lot of times it's the personality and who they are and the life experience of that person that they just imbue into your script. And it's like magic. You always want to high five them and give them $20. That's not my job.
Or a lot more.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that it might be easier for someone who thinks they could be a voiceover talent to maybe be a hand model instead.
Well, or I would encourage, there's a fantastic website out there called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's by a fellow who does a ton of animation work out in Hollywood, and he kind of has an FAQ that you can go through. And one of the first things was, I have a great voice. Yeah, but do you like reading? Like, do you like reading bedtime stories to your kids? Do you like, playing around with text and stuff? Because that's mostly, as Bryce was saying, that's what voice actors are doing. Like you're bringing written words to life. So yeah, I highly encourage, check it out. It's a fascinating visit.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so we do have a question. Bill Lovejoy has a question that I'll give him the opportunity to ask, and then I want to come back and talk a little bit about music. So Bill, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, I'm unmuted, I believe. Hi guys, interesting conversation. Thank you for being with us today. I've always, I've been over my years of my advertising career, I've been in many studios around different cities and worked with many different teams, including yours many times. And I'm always interested in the kind of the decision tree, if you will, on what is the right sound. In other words, you guys all sound fantastic because you're on this amazing equipment and your voices all sound like you could, I don't know, you could do anything right now from where you are. And we're probably all over the place. But in your studio, is there one of you who says that is the right, when you're talking about making up for conditions around you that might not be so great? Who says this is the way it should be? Is it the director? Is it the agency? Is it the client? How do you kind of manage and negotiate that? I hope that makes sense.
Well, I mean, when you say, what are you referring to in terms of what is the right sound? And you mean like when the mix is completed? Like when we put the entire package together and we have a mix for someone, and then are you talking about who signs off and says this is the way it should be?
Well, that, but really, I was in my mind, I was thinking kind of before that. So, for example, when you're recording a voice and you have, whether it's in your studio or someplace on location, if it's some ambient noise or the voice has a certain kind of sound to it, before you apply any post-production effects, but you have to know when to shut down the set, right, and call it a day. And so, is it when you're just recording the raw information? Is it you guys who advise the client and the director to say, we got what we need, we're good, we can close this down now? Like whose decision is it?
I think that we're constantly, in terms of the quality of the sound, I think it might be a little bit of a wide-ranging question, but there are obviously, we have the choice of several microphones that we can use. We have the choice of all, infinite mic positions that we can use. Every voice has a different tonality, a different timbre. Some people produce a lot of plosives. And so I think that the three of us are constantly, we have certain things that we probably do every day in a session. You get to know it. I think, at some point, Rick and I counted up one time and I was thinking, I've been doing this since 1981. And so I think I've recorded something like 70,000 radio commercials and probably 50,000 TV spot mixes. And so it's like after a while, when you walk into the studio, you can, we have things like certain microphones sound better on certain female voices, or you might put the microphone on and go, oh, she has such sibilance in her voice, especially that's with female voices. Sibilance is usually more of a factor. So we're going to change from that 416 short shotgun to a Neumann TLM 103 large diaphragm condenser and put it over here to the side. So a lot of that, we're not necessarily making a call and saying, hey, we're going to do it. We are just adjusting to get a good flat recording with whatever microphone we want to use. And then the quality is sort of set, Bill. Then we do our recording, and then we're trying to get ourselves with the recording in the position where it doesn't have a lot of coloration in it. There's another factor that we deal with is proximity effect, which is an increased low end presence when the microphone gets too close to the talent. So a lot of times you'll hear us say, a couple of takes in, we'll say, hang on, everybody on the Zoom, I need to make a small microphone adjustment. I'm going to move it up and out of the way to an angle because we're getting some plosives and a little too much proximity effect. We just do a lot of that automatically. And I'll defer to Rick and Ben to kind of put in their 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, when I was thinking about your question, Bill, you mentioned about, you mentioned on the set. I just wanted to, mention that we're primarily in studio. So in terms of having issues with noise and other factors, we don't really have to deal with that because obviously everything is recorded here, in our booths. Or again, we do Source Connect sessions. Source Connect is a way we can connect to other studios or talent in real time and record them from remote locations. But generally, they're also in controlled environments as well, and we don't really have to worry too much about any ambient sound or things to that nature. We do go out on location on occasion. Obviously, I've done it for you, Colin. I've gone out to one of your clients before to record, just voiceover type of things. But in terms of like shooting, like capturing sound for a TV shoot, that's something we don't do. We don't really go out on location in that regard. We're primarily post-production. There
are people like John Toffolo, and it's not only is it it's still audio recording, but those guys have a huge box with 50 different types of microphones. They've got multiple lavaliers, multiple ways of recording people. They've got a special mixer, special recorders. They have a whole set. And as Rick was saying, if we have a lot of times a situation where somebody will say, can you come down to Lilly to record the president of Lilly in his office? And we'll go and do that. We're sort of setting up a fake little studio and doing that. But we do not pretend to represent ourselves as being location sound engineers. That is a whole discipline. I think you said this before, Rick. That's a whole discipline unto itself. And when that gets above a certain dotted line, we say, call John Toffolo, call XYZ, and have that person on your set.
And don't hang your own drywall.
I do, but I do not finish my own drywall.
That's great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. So I just want to be mindful of our time, and we are getting a little bit close to our at the end of our hour together. And I would love to give you all an opportunity to share, 1 or 2 of the things that we were talking about before. So I don't know, Rick or Bryce, if one of you want to take that over, tell us what you're going to share with us and what we should be listening for.
Yeah, Bryce, which one of the videos would you like to share? And I can pull that up.
You can either do the merchant spot or the chase, which is the 500 thing. That's shorter, or the merchants thing is shorter. So
yeah, let me play this little 15-second merchants spot. This is for Merchants National Bank. It's a let me talk while I share my screen, and then as soon as I show it, Bryce can explain to you what he did in terms of the post-production portion of this. There we go. Are you guys seeing that logo up there? Okay. All right, let me play this for you.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to get a highly customizable mortgage at a highly competitive rate. It doesn't even take a rocket. Just sign, click, and close. It's easy to bank with Merchants Bank, Indiana's e-mortgage leader. Hop on over.
So a little tiny short sound design, obviously an animated spot. We began with some storyboards and recorded, the voice talent was cast. We recorded, I think, 6 or 7 of these, and it went away. The animators animated it, and then it came back, and one at a time, each one of these sounds had to be, I just kind of went through it, found each sound that I wanted to. I think that has like 48 tracks of sound in it. We go through frame by frame and design each little sound. A lot of times there are stacked sounds, which the rocket taking off might be 5 or 6 different sounds. And then that is actually a piece of stock music that was edited to fit each spot. And then we added a few musical elements like the little bell. There's like a little desk bell when he winks at the end. So that is just that process of sound design and mixing with the music and the voiceover is all just, that's kind of what I think Ben and Rick would all say. This is probably what we love doing most of all. It's a real challenge and a lot of fun to put that all into whatever time frame we have to do it.
Bryce, you want me to play one of the other
You could play the chase if you want to. This is one of the openings for the ABC Sports for the Indy 500 that I did a few years back, but it's just a fun sound design piece.
Okay, here it comes.
There are only a few universal truths of human nature. This is one of them.
Hit it.
Let's get something straight. Yeah, we love the speed, we dig acceleration, but we're all about the chase. Adrenaline pumping, pedal stomping. We're not hunters and gatherers. We're chasers. We chase down the bad guys, chase girls, chase boys, chase our dreams. It's not the thrill of the capture, it's the thrill of the chase. Doesn't matter where you look, you'll find us chasing something, but once a year, it all comes together. At a place called the Indy 500, the world's greatest chase.
Joker wants to race. All right, come on, let's go, let's go.
There's only 2 things on your mind where you're in a chase. 1, must go faster. And 2.
Better win, that's all I know. Better win. Punch it, man, punch it, go. Now that's how you supposed to drive. From now on, that's how you drive.
But this is Indy, the Big Daddy. Everything is amped up and these drivers are getting after it.
On green, I'm going for it.
Chasing immortality, chasing the odds, chasing history. They've been chasing here at the Brickyard for a long time, and they'll be chasing here well into the future. But right now, it's all about today. The fastest cars, the best drivers, the biggest sporting event in the world. So get your you-know-what gear, sit down and buckle up. It's the Indy 500, baby, and the chase is on!
Well, as we mentioned before, there's a lot of lag issues there, but that's a little 2-minute story that was a total, except for the movie clips, there was no sound in that when I got it. So everything, Rollins' voice was in there and just the clips from the movie. So all of the car sound effects are all the IndyCar stuff is things that I recorded at tracks around the country. I go to IndyCar tracks and record with a digital recorder up close. And so all of the cars racing, engines revving, all of that stuff is all recorded from a couple of feet from the car. And it's all put back in sort of film style. So that's just like kind of a miniature movie, but just that was a really fun sound design challenge that I had a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then do you want to? I've got one more spot to play if we have time.
Sure, let's go for it.
And I think this is an example of kind of what we were talking about earlier when it came to some of the talent questions. We had to. This particular spot is for Lake City Bank. It's from an agency here in Indianapolis called Hendricks Rader Wise. Tony Mercia was the person I worked with who directed it. And I like this spot. It's something we just did recently because we don't see a lot of really creative radio anymore. Radio's become real nuts and bolts and just getting the message out. Here's the message. Here's a piece of music. But this spot was really fun because it involved a lot of sound effects. It involved really specific direction with talent. And let me just play it for you, and you'll see why.
People everywhere are binge watching their money. Now streaming on Lake City Bank Digital, Attack of the Transactions.
There's so many. We're surrounded.
Also featuring The Day the Spending Stopped.
Sometimes saving money just feels so right.
And The Incredible Shrinking Debt.
Honey, come look. Our loan balance is so tiny.
Plus, Adventures of the Penny Pincher.
My journey has not been an easy one, but my budget is going to survive.
Watch new episodes of Your Money unfold every day. Now streaming on Lake City Bank Digital. Learn more at lakecitybank.com/digital. Member FDIC.
So that was a really fun spot. And I just want to mention one of the voice talent in this is Bridget Height, who is actually on our chat right now. I can see that she's in the room.
I thought I heard her.
Yeah, so hello, Bridget. There she is. Hi, Bridget.
I've been listening and fascinated this whole time. Thanks. I feel like such an interloper. I saw Ben's Facebook thing and I was like, Borshoff, Earshot, I want to see these guys talking. Yes. Yeah, that was fun. That was so much fun, Rick. It sounded great.
Yeah, you probably didn't even hear the final product, did you?
No, that's the first time.
Session. So Bridget came in. The other talent on this was Ryan Artsberger. He did some of the lines along with Bridget. And the main talent, the main announcer talent in this was Artie Widgery, who was just perfect for that old time announcer sort of thing. They cast him perfectly, and all the music came from our library, and of course there were a lot of sound effects in there as well.
That's great. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing some of these fun and interesting things and giving us so many things to think about when it comes to our next audio project. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up now, but if you are interested in seeing a replay of this, it will be on our website soon, and we will be happy to share that back with everyone who registered today so that you can share it with other members of your team. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And hopefully everyone will join us again for a future Shoff Chat.